Guys, the GOAT is back. Train, a map almost as old as Counter-Strike itself, has once again made its way into the competitive map pool. Valve have totally reworked it for CS2, but it's not unrecognizable from the old one. It looks better and has some major structural differences, but the skeleton is the same. They've also introduced some interesting damage prediction stuff, which hopefully makes the game feel better, as well as some cosmetic changes to Overpass. It's not a big update, but it's a good one. Let's get into it. Valve have reintroduced Train into the competitive map pool. Now look, we knew it was coming. We knew they were reworking it. Some of you Zoomers may not actually know this, but Train is literally one of, if not the oldest map in Counter-Strike. It's almost as old as the game itself. So Counter-Strike without Train, it just doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? Now, as much as I loved CSGO Train, there were some problems with it. The map was sort of ludicrously CT-sided in a way that just like wasn't actually fun to play. Even the pros sort of notoriously hated to play it. Now, what's really impressive about this rework is they haven't actually overhauled the entire map. If you know the map, you'll basically know where to go, what to do at any given time. They've just made a couple of like crucial changes, which I want to highlight. But first, oh my God, can we talk about the droplets? Guys, please look at that. God damn. Oh, the scope, the stickers. My goodness. My goodness. Oh my days. That was an unnecessary touch. They didn't have to do that, but it looks really good. So the biggest problem with CSGO Train was basically just that it was very, very difficult for the Ts to explode either through main onto A site or through lower onto B site. Now, as we walk through the map, you'll see that the structure is basically identical. It's just that all of the little set pieces around the structure have changed to just make it a little bit more open and honestly a little bit more reasonable. You'll see that main looks more or less the same. The difference is that it's a lot more open onto the sites and there aren't all of these tiny little angles you have to clear every single time you cross main as a T. You can see from a glance that they've basically just cleaned up A site. They've simplified it. There's fewer train cars, but the major set pieces are all still here. A great example of how the site is simplified is you can see that with the new CS2 smoke grenades, one well-placed smoke will actually, that you can throw from outside, will actually just shut off this entire IV and cams sightline, right? Meaning you only have to have a pop dog and get over to E-box, and if you actually throw a second smoke, which blooms here, you can see that both sight lines are completely obfuscated and allow the Ts to actually just pop out onto a site that was otherwise very difficult to pop out on. IV, there have been a few changes. You can see that this angle is now, this train car is now shoved into the wall, so you have to come out through the right side. And you can see that cams has actually just been completely removed, and there's now just this open doorway that goes into IV or rotates into CT spawn. This doorway has been closed completely, which means if you want to play the bomb car, you have to play it from this little cubby or on the site itself or from Z or Pop Dog. The biggest change is probably the fact that they got rid of Heaven. I don't think this is a hot take. I think that was it's a good change. It's a guy, you don't need Heaven. I know it's really iconic, but like, it's not necessary. I think this is a really good change. I think that cleaning up the bomb site and just making it a little bit more reasonable for Ts to come out and take honest, actual gunfights is good for the health of the map. Z is almost completely the same, although I don't really think it needed many changes. Pop Dog changes are probably one of the biggest in the map. So if you come into Pop Dog, you'll notice the ladder is completely gone. It's now a staircase that leads into the upper of B site, and these stairs that previously, where the Pop Dog ladder previously was, now is gone, and these stairs just connect to lower stairs, which bring you out towards Pop Dog itself. Now, in terms of upper B side, it's identical with the exception of the boxes that are now missing over here, so that the CTs no longer have places to kind of just sit and rat. You'll see that there is a really nice opening here to throw nades out onto the bomb site. Really nice little addition for Ts to basically just throw some easy flashes, some smoke lineups that people will inevitably figure out, and allow for just a nice little easy pop out onto the bomb site itself. In terms of the bomb site itself, you can see that the back train car has been removed, and it's like A site. It's just a lot more open. It's, you know, skeletally really recognizable, but it just feels closer to like an actual area that you'd want to maybe actually enter as a terrorist instead of alt tab onto Twitter. I'm not talking shit about Train. I really love Train, but the sites were so needlessly CT-sided that it became very, very difficult, right, to actually just enter any of these doorways and not get blown up. To boot, you can see they've just completely closed off cat here. So this angle that used to exist where you could basically just sit here with an op, you now no longer can. You're closed off from a sight line. They've really cleaned up a lot of these little rat angles, which I like. You can see that it's actually very difficult now to get a look. You have to work really hard to try to get a look onto the actual upper pop. And if you want to get a look onto it, you basically have to be wide in the open, which I think is really balanced, and I think it's a really good change. I feel they've also lowered this to the ground, obviously. I'd have to actually compare it with old Train because it's been a couple of years, but I think you can kind of just actually run out now and plant like this as a T and not take any fall damage, which is also a really good change. In terms of actual CT spawn, it's basically identical. There's almost no changes whatsoever. Yeah, like I said, skeletally, in terms of how your brain actually computes the map, it's basically identical. There's not really any big changes, which I really like. Couple little new additions, things like this that allow for some, you know, the CTs to still have a little bit of creativity in terms of the off angles they take and stuff like that. Now for Ivy, it's also almost identical. You still run through here as a T. Once you get into Ivy, I feel like it's basically the same. There's this nice little cubby on the side here now. This does seem like a really strong position the CTs will be able to play, where you can both get a look onto main and you can hold the actual Ivy push like this, and you can also see across onto site. This does seem like kind of a power position that it might be good for an opera to play. On the whole, the map is really similar, but some really, really great changes. My opinion is that this is the Train rework that I was waiting for. This is the rework that I wanted. I think that I love Train. I've loved Train since 1.6. And like ratty shit has always been part of the map. Like you used to be able to shoot people like underneath train cars in 1.6 and stuff. And it was really fun and it was really great when I was 11. But now I kind of would rather the map actually be reasonable and balanced. And I think that this is a really, 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 really great crack at an absolute classic of a Counter-Strike map. Now, in addition to putting Train back into the game, probably the biggest highlight of this update is these two paragraphs right here. They are further changes to the actual, like the feeling of the game, the mechanics of the game. I couldn't tell you what any of this means. I swear Valve are doing it on purpose because we talk so much shit about how bad the game feels that they just talk down to us because they know how stupid we are. I'm sure there are intelligent people on Twitter who can tell you what this means and who know their shit, who can explain this to you. But I played some, but suffice it to say, it's supposed to make the game feel better. There's been a lot of talk, obviously, about sort of like kill delay and the feeling of bullets actually registering and hit reg. I do actually think that the game feels better. I don't think it's placebo. I do actually feel, it feels to me like with every update, the game gets increasingly less CS2-y. It's really hard with these updates because, you know, you do that thing where you jump in for 20 minutes and you play and you're like, does this feel better? Oh, this feels better. You get a double kill and you're like, oh, this feels great. And then you die and you're like, oh no, it's CS2, right? So it's really hard. Like, but I will say, Copium and placebo aside, I do actually feel like the game felt better. Even when I was getting swung, I was getting kills. It didn't feel like I couldn't fight back. It felt crispy. It sort of felt like it does feel with every update, it's getting closer and closer to CSGO. Now, the last thing I'll talk about is actually just some cosmetic changes to Overpass. If you actually go into the patch notes, you can see all of this stuff here. It's mostly really just cosmetic. There is one thing though that I do think actually matters, and that is they removed the railing on Heaven and actually reworked how the drop down damage works. So now it's like you can fall, if you actually fall on the platform, you take damage, but if you actually like slide, like surf down the wall, you don't, which is sort of more intuitive and probably how it always should have been. Obviously none of this matters because Overpass is not in the map pool, but when it does eventually come back, I think it's a good change. I do think it makes the map feel a lot better. Honestly, that's basically it. I have not been this excited to see a new map in the pool since Anubis, and before that, honestly, ever. I have no idea. I like this Train rework a lot. I'm really excited that Valve are putting it in the game. I'm very curious to know what they take out. I'm thinking it's probably going to be Vertigo, even though I don't want it to be. I would like it if they did something spicy, like maybe took out Mirage or Inferno. but they won't. Oh, and last but not least, someone did actually discover on this like schedule on Train, these Cyrillic names that are actually being translated into the names of the different maps, and they're hypothesizing that the next map that's going to be reworked is Cobblestone, and then possibly Cache, and then Bank, it says. Anyway, that's really exciting because the two biggest things I think we all want from CS2 are the game to feel better and to see new maps, especially in competitive play. But for now, this is a great update. I really like it. I do think the game feels a little bit better, although I want to experiment with it more, and I cannot wait to see officials play it on Train. Until next time, guys.